Hello and welcome back to the Claret Blue Podcast Q&A session sponsored by NordVPN. All the information that you need for Nord, including a tasty discount code, is in the description down below. I'm Dan Rolinson, joined by John Townley to answer all your Aston Villa questions. There is absolutely loads to get through, John, so I don't care how you are this week. Not interested. We're here to talk about Aston Villa. What I will say very quickly is we posted an episode with Barry Cooper, the Hull City podcaster, last week about Philogene. If you haven't seen that, go back and check that out. And Matt Kendrick also caught up with Colin Abbott, and he revealed the story of how Paul McGrath got his God nickname, which I thought was very interesting. So if you missed those over the weekend, go back and take a look. We are here, though, to talk about current day Aston Villa, not Paul McGrath. And we'll dive straight into it, John, with Steve, who says, should we be concerned that we lost every game in the States?
No, it's not. I'm not bothered that we've lost games.
Because I said at the start of pre-season, it's just pre-season and it doesn't matter. But when you wake up and see, Villa lost again, there was a little bit of me that's like, oh, do you know what I mean? Like, oh,
yeah,
that's not
fair.
great.
That is an interesting thought, because obviously I'm watching the games as they happen. So maybe I'm less... Not less bothered, but kind of more, I don't know, like if Villa concede in pre-season, I'll kind of sigh and be like, oh, that's not ideal. But then if you wake up and see a result, that would put you in a bad mood for the rest of the day, really, wouldn't it? You'd be like, oh, Villa lost again. What happened there?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
You're living it as it happens, I suppose, whereas because they've been nighttime kickoffs and I'm not staying up that late, I'll be upfront about that. I will wake up and I've got post notifications on for Villa's Twitter. So I'll have like a notification number, click it, new post from Villa, and it'll have like all their updates throughout the night. And usually the most recent one in the morning is the full-time like graphic or whatever. So when it's like full-time, Villa 0, Columbus Crew 4 or whatever it was, I can't even remember. So it doesn't matter to that extent. But I was like, that feels a bit weird, but ultimately it doesn't matter. But I sense and understand the concern of like Villa aren't creating many chances, we're not scoring loads of goals. Like last year, our pre-season was pretty good. I think we went unbeaten throughout it, and then we lost the opening day in embarrassing fashion. So in that instance, you can be great throughout pre-season and still start the season badly. So the reverse is also true. You can have a poor pre-season, and then we could beat West Ham next week, and absolutely nobody cares that we lose to Club America. We scored lots of goals last year. We were creating chances. You could kind of see the style of play that we were trying to implement, whereas this year it does feel a little bit like we're not quite there yet.
Yeah, but we are without Watkins, Martinez, Konsa. We're basically without a spine, because Luiz is no longer here either, and Kamara is obviously injured. So, I'm really not bothered by the results. I think you have to take it in context as well. The Columbus game, we made some horrific errors, individual errors. Torres made a bad one. Cash made a bad one. Gauchi didn't come off his line when the high line was in place, but the high line had, I think, Luca Dean, and a player who wasn't a centre-back, or I can't remember now. But either way, there's reasons for why we lost those games, and I'm absolutely okay with it. Carlos got sent off. How did you react when you saw the notification that Carlos got sent off?
Oh, I thought, what an idiot. Like, that just rude. Not in terms of like, what a bad performance from him, or like, but just like it disrupts everything that you would have wanted to have got out of a pre-season game. You want to play 11v11, obviously, to try and work on something. So for that to be thrown out the window, it's just silly. Like, there's absolutely no reason to get sent off don't even get involved. It's literally meaningless so your opponent scored a goal and you're getting in their face. Honestly, I thought that was mental.
Yeah, it was very silly, and Carlos should know better, and he was probably, embarrassed by himself. But Villa were 2-0 down by that point, and I'll be like, I don't think they played many friendlies or any friendlies. I can't quite remember now. Before then, so that was a bit concerning. The first half of Leipzig, we didn't look very good, but I was happy with the first half against Club America. So Club America and Columbus are halfway through their seasons. They've got better fitness. They know their rhythm. Like, they're there. Whereas we've got a lot of new players. But I was really happy with the first half against Club America. We should have scored a couple of times. McGinn and Bailey both hit the post. Second half, or shall I say the last 30 minutes after Onana came on against Columbus, was also good. So those two moments are sort of the first half of Club America, back end of Columbus, I was happy with. But the rest of it is, Emery made 9 changes at half-time against Club America, and then 2 more after that, so 11 changes in the second half. There really isn't anything you can take from losing against them. Athletic Bilbao and Dortmund will be the games that I look at and will worry if we're lacking cohesion in certain areas, which I kind of expect, to be honest, because a lot of new players and more players to come in. So not particularly worried about the results, but I understand there's a bit of kind of worry, I suppose.
Next question from SR Masters. I'm not sure whether you'll know the answer to this, but we can speculate. They ask, how are pre-season friendlies planned? Is it a commercial matter predominantly or a team conditioning one? It seems this year has been a bit odd in terms of a mismatch between what players we've had available versus our opponents. We seem to have struggled a bit so far. Do we know how pre-season is organised?
I think you kind of answered the question there, to be fair. It is obviously a lot of it is commercial. Villa are in America, the commercial hotspot of the world, and it's a massive audience.
Losing every game.
Yeah, but it's more than that. We're in Times Square. We're releasing. There's much more to it. I think if you look at it off the pitch, we won absolutely. Like the kit launch was fantastic, and that was before the tour, but it kind of rolls over. So yeah, off the pitch, I think massive tick. We definitely were a big success. I don't know. I mean, do you get fans because you beat teams? I don't know. Like, for example, in the RB Leipzig game, I don't think there's many fans in the stadium at all. The game against Club America was mostly Club America fans because obviously it's around the corner for them. Well, not around the corner, but it's much closer than it is to England, obviously. It's in Central America. But yeah, so I don't really think that would have a massive impact. Villa being in the Champions League and playing well in the Premier League, that's what wins your American fans. Coming over for a couple of days and playing teams who already have supporters isn't going to do much, I don't think. I think the summer series we might have benefited from that. I don't know exactly, but that's something a bit more entertaining and something a bit more about it because you're playing against Premier League players. I feel like that was more entertaining and there was a bit more to it. Like West Ham were playing Palace and Wolves. Wolves played those two teams as well, I think. And that, although they're pretty free, dull clubs, really, for American supporters, that I'd feel would kind of get more attraction maybe because it's Premier League against Premier League. Yeah. I don't know. But just the other side of that would be, the condition side. Emery really likes going to America and having the facilities there because they're all top notch. The only thing I think that was lacking kind of the provision over in America would probably be like the pitches. I think Man United a couple of injuries from the pitches, and I was watching one of the games and at half time they brought on some hoses and stuff. They didn't even have the sprinklers, I was really shocked at. So that probably needs to be improved on. But everything else I think is absolutely fine. So
back to on the pitch matters from Darren. Do the results in the USA confirm that after the first 11 to 14 players, the quality in the squad is still no better than it was last year? If we repeat last year's performance, however, I'll be very happy, which is ultimately the main thing. If Villa still do what they did last year, regardless of who the personnel is, that's a very impressive season. But is that first 11, 12, 13 players as good as it was last year?
Our depth is better, for sure, because we've signed different profiles of play, which I think is really important. Injuries are going to be the kind of the answer to that
inevitable
question. Yeah, they are inevitable, but it depends how many and in what position. Like last season, for example, when Ramsey was injured, we were left really light, and then we had a couple more in different areas, and we were really stretched when Kamara was out. We had to bring McGinn back, and we all know what happened. Centre backs, that went wrong as well. Longley and Torres for the Fulham game. But I don't know. I'd almost say that we are stronger as a squad, but I'd argue that the first 11, I take issue with that because I haven't seen us play without Luiz. Basically, I need to see us play against Premier League teams to kind of give a proper answer to it. And obviously,
we won't know, will we?
We're not done yet either. So, if we can add another player to support Watkins, if we can sign another centre back, if Carlos goes, then that could be 2 new players in the starting 11 of our best 11, and then Kamara comes back into that as well. So, I think if you take us as a whole after the window closes, you'll be asking questions of where does McGinn play? What midfield 2 do we have? And that's not something we would have been asking last season. It would have been, they're playing. And on the bench, you've probably got 2 goalkeepers and a couple of kids. Whereas next season, it'll be, instead of the kids, it'll be Barkley and Barrenechea. Instead of 2 goalkeepers, it might be someone like, I don't know, Elling Jr. You get my point, though. It's more options. But are we going to have a situation where we have no injuries and we have Mings back, Kamara back, everything's perfect and we're all fully fit? I just don't know if that's going to happen. If it does, then I think we'll be in a really good position. We're going to have to play differently because we don't have we don't have Luiz, and yes, Tielemans can do that role to a point. Surely Onana plays with Kamara when both those two players are fit. So how does that work? When Ramsey's back, that's going to be like a new signing, or he is back. Sorry, so that is a new signing. Buendia is there as well. So there's a lot to look at and be happy with. I think I'm not concerned about depth whatsoever at the moment, but my only concern would be how do we, ultimately you've got 11 players on the pitch. You've got subs, which is obviously brilliant. Philly comes into the fold now as well. But yeah, what happens from minute 1 to 60 with that starting 11, we'll wait and see.
You said just then that we're not done, and I've included a screenshot in my notes here because I had a bit of a back and forth with a guy called Steve on Twitter who asked, how many more ins and outs do you think there will be? I have a horrible feeling we could be done. And I said, no chance we're done. And he said, I'll bookmark this, Dan. I said, go on then, fair enough, do it, because I would be absolutely stunned if, as of the 5th of August, Villa signed no more players until the 1st of September.
Well, Villa are working on a one out, one in policy, basically. We have to make room in the team now. So if Carlos goes, new centre-back comes in. If Duran goes, new forward comes in, which obviously Felix is their priority target. They'll obviously have other targets as well, because that is a difficult move to pull off. And he's gone to Hong Kong with the Atletico squad. He scored against Getafe on Saturday night. Nice goal, hit the bar as well. Was also jeered by the fans. So a really weird dynamic. They still want to sell him, and he obviously wants to leave as well. But you get the feeling that he's probably trying to wait on Barcelona and see if they can kind of stump up the cash at the end of the window. It feels like that one would. I mean, again, things change rapidly in football. But sitting here right now, that feels like something that would be, if we get that done, that'll be later in the window. And again, you have the moving part of, I presume that's John Duran that would leave to make way for Felix, because we said before, when Philogene joined, he was obviously told he's going to be playing, but he's not a player who would play in support of Watkins. He's going to be playing as Bailey's understudy, basically, or he'll come on, in the 70th minute to allow Bailey not to play 90 minutes every game and get injured like he did last season and play through pain. But that leaves a massive hole next to Watkins. At the moment, we only have McGinn who can play next to him, and we have also got Rodgers and Ramsey, granted, but I prefer those two players battling out on the left, to be honest. I want someone else who's got real quality like McGinn, but in a different way, different profile of player to support Watkins. That you've got real quality. Then I said it actually a few months ago that if there was one position where I want to see us add to, it would be in there, and I'd have put Diaby and Bailey as you're on the right, basically, and we have someone who can link midfield to Ollie Watkins like that, and McGinn does it in a very different way, and certainly a really good option, and he'll be in my starting 11, my best 11, whatever, I think. So yeah, kind of lost track of the question, to be fair. What was it?
Well, a different question for me. Is it Felix now, not Felix?
Yeah, Felix. Yeah, that is how you say it. Yeah,
Felix,
I was told off
is it?
by
Okay.
I was told off by my partner and Felix. Apparently, I think that's right.
João Felix.
No. Joao Felix, I think.
João Felix. Yeah, like I said, I'd be amazed if we didn't sign any more players, because players will leave, and Villa need to do more stuff. But let's move on from that. Villa will sign players, and if not, Steve will be able to bookmark my tweet and share it with the world, and hopefully that doesn't happen. Let's talk Champions League a little bit from Dark Splodge, who says, regardless of how well our UCL campaign goes, what is the bare minimum position that you believe we should finish in the Premier League this season? For example, if we finish any lower than 6th, is that unacceptable? Sorry if you guys have already answered this. We haven't. We're not going to go into it too much now, John, because we're doing all our big season build-up stuff next week. And what does success look like is part of that show. So we'll gloss over it quickly here. Unai Emery said, we got the Champions League, and now it's the highest challenge I can have, and we can have at Aston Villa, which is to keep it. So Emery wants top 4 again, or top 5 if that is Champions League.
Coefficient, mate, come on.
Coefficient FC is back, everybody. So he's setting his expectations already of wanting back-to-back Champions League campaigns, which is possibly pressure, possibly nice to see us talked up rather than talked down. But back to the original point, where we finish in the Premier League that you deem acceptable?
European positions, we have to finish in Europe. So whatever gets Conference League is the bare minimum for me. If we finish place out of Europe, there isn't going to be a meltdown from me. But it would obviously be a bit disappointing because you know that Emery, his whole career it's European football. He's been in there for 16 years, I think. Next year might even be his 17th year, actually. I'm at the point where I don't want to kind of ask for too much. And yes, Champions League would be great again. But honestly, any brand of European football, I'm just happy with. Like, I'm in for the ride. Like, what I really like about the new format of the European competitions, and I've said it before, that no one comes down in the competitions. So you know who you have to beat to win the competition from day one, basically, after all the playoffs are done. So, Tottenham and Man United, for example, they know that they have to overcome Ajax, Lazio, Porto, Frankfurt. There's another decent team in there as well. But that's what they have to do. That's obviously they have to overcome themselves to win it as well. But I like that because obviously in the Conference League, and it's not an excuse, but we played Europa League teams towards the end of it, and injuries and lack of fitness and tiredness was key to why we were knocked out, really. But we wouldn't have played Olympiacos, and Fiorentina wouldn't have been in the final if this was the format. Like, Chelsea know who they have to beat to win the Conference League, which they should do. And I like that. So I'm happy to be in any European competition. The Champions League is obviously great for financial reasons, and it puts you on a massive platform, and you get to go to potentially somewhere like the Bernabeu or Bayern Munich. But I really like that if you're in the Europa League, you know who you have to beat to win the competition, and that it feels, that's something I like. So yeah, as long as it's European football, I'd back us to win a trophy in European football. Probably not the Champions League, but those are the two competitions I'd be more than happy to enter to try and win. And we laugh about the coefficient, but last year was the second year in about 10 that England have finished outside the top 2 of the coefficient or whatever it is, and obviously last year was the time that it mattered, really. But I believe if 5th gets Champions League, then 8th would be Conference League, I think, and then 6, 7 would be Europa League. If outside teams don't win the FA Cup or Carabao like Man United did last year, I think that's true. Yeah. Then you get 8 positions, and again, if we can finish in the top 8, which I think we can, and there's coefficient on our side, happy days. I'm happy just to have European football. Obviously, the main goal is Champions League. It always will be. But I just think we need to enjoy what we've got at the moment. We've come so far so quickly. Champions League is just fantastic. I'm going to enjoy next season, and hopefully, we can finish in European football again, and then we have more experiences in different places the season after.
There's a question from Dan who says, what do you think is better, a slow start with a strong finish or a strong start with a slow finish, which is a tongue twister, last season? For me, it makes no difference, but the mentality of some fans could be hugely affected by a slower start, and that could affect the players, although having Champions League could counter that. Does it really matter?
I think our slow end to last season was kind of...
dramatic.
I don't know. Maybe, a little bit, because we did draw to Liverpool, who were in 3rd. And I know, 2 late goals from Mr. Duran, but I don't know. It's not as if we lost 5 games in a row. Like, the season was done before Palace. We lost to Brighton, and we had a bit of a wobble, but it wasn't very dramatic. If we did that at the start of next season, we'd be about 10th in the league, maybe. I just think it was a bit over dramatic. And to be honest, I'd rather have a better start and finish slow as the question asked, because I feel like you can just get yourself over the line when you really need to. For example, Liverpool. There was no way we were going to lose that game when Duran made it 3-2, because the whole end basically just sucked the ball into the net. It was going to happen. I'd rather do what we did last season than have a slow start, because then when you load up Twitter, you want to... it's horrible when there's a Villa meltdown, and there has been after pre-season games. So imagine what it would be like if we only won one of the first 4 games or something.
Simon says, do you think there is a high possibility, you won't like this, that if Villa were to have another successful season, with Pep Guardiola looking likely to exit Man City a year from now, that there may be some admiring glances from the Etihad for Unai and his team? Surely, if they came calling, he would go.
I also don't think he would be the fit for Man City either, to be honest.
Why?
Because you have to play a certain way. Yeah, I mean, Guardiola's football, I think, is incredibly boring, and I don't like it. But that is the brand of football that they've set up the Etihad campus, because it's not just the first 11 or the first team. They've got under 8s playing the Guardiola way, and that's his vision now. So I presume whatever happens, they'll stick to that. Because why would you make a dramatic overhaul? And Villa play some great football themselves, but as I said, I think it's better than... can't say better, but it's more entertaining in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is City play on TV? I don't watch them. Like, I don't. It's boring as hell. Like, they pass. That's all great. Well done, lads. Like, not bothered by it. I'd rather see other teams. I'd rather see Crystal Palace or Wolves play than Man City, 100%. And yeah, some people will love what Guardiola's done, which is, he's probably one. I think he's probably the best manager. Well, he's definitely the best manager in my lifetime. He's better than Sir Alex, in my opinion, because of how he changed football. But I think it's a bit boring. But I can understand it's. He is. The influence he's had is incredible. But just don't think Emery would be someone they'd look at. I don't know who that would be, but it would be someone that Pep advises, presumably. So I don't have anything to worry about on that at all, really.
I think it still stands the same as what was said this year about what if Ten Hag goes, or surely Emery goes to Man United. I don't think at this stage of the project, for want of a better phrase, Emery departs anyway. And I think even in a year's time, I don't think his work is done here with Villa. I think he will see out at least a 3, 4, 5 year period to see what can be achieved here before even considering moving onwards anyway. So I think even if Guardiola was to leave and Man City do come looking, which, as you said, they may not anyway, I just don't see him. We don't know what's about to unfold in the next year. Maybe do you know what I mean? Like, Villa could be very successful themselves and they not want to leave anyway. So
but I think you're right, Dan. Whoever tries to link him to other jobs and whatnot, he's just signed a new deal, and there's a brilliant projects in place. He knows that whatever he has here, he can't have elsewhere. He has ultimate power. We've said it a million times. So this is something that I'm sure he's going to kind of stay loyal to for many years.
Yeah.
And hopefully years after that. And trophies, Champions League qualification, more success. That's everything that he's working for. The thought that he would leave after one season last year just because there were other clubs maybe looking at him, I think that was just the people looking from the outside of he's done well at Villa, so he needs to go. It was always rubbish. And the Bayern Munich one, I don't know if there's anything in that, to be honest, but Villa did act quickly to activate that clause of an extra year to kind of put anyone off in case they were interested. And then obviously signed a new deal now to 2029, I think. So his head's there.
We'll have less of that Man City talk from, who was that? Simon. Di says, why do we keep hearing the narrative that Konsa should be right back? He's by far our best defensive centre-back, and playing him out of position instantly weakens our defence, in my opinion. And I saw a tweet from some kind of stats account a couple of days ago where they'd got, I think it was one-on-one defending. I can't remember what it was specifically, but it was a graph of loads of different players and they were highlighting somebody else. But in the very right top-hand corner, being the best of whatever the two things were on this graph was Ezri Konsa, miles better than anybody else at whatever this was. I'm pretty sure it was one-on-one defending, which is him mostly playing as a right-back. And I tweeted something I think it might be time for us to do why Ezri Konsa is actually very good at right-back kind of video. Whereas we've always said throughout the season, he's good at that position, but he's better at centre-half. Surely it's better to have him in his better, more natural position. But when the stats back up how good he was at right-back as well, is that just not a thing now that Ezri Konsa, he is a right-back?
Well, he came through as a right-back at Charlton and has played there before. I remember when he played right-back under Gerrard for a couple of games, I think Leeds away, for example. And I was watching him thinking, you should probably stay there because you're doing well. He's deceivingly quick as well, I think. But I think that that graph was, it must have been something like a percentage of dribblers tackled, which basically means how many times do they tackle a player dribbling against them, what percentage. And Konsa is the best in Europe's top 5 leagues at that as well. I think it's something absurd, 85% success on that, which is incredible. Probably the best one-on-one defender in the Premier League. If not, he's in the top 2. That stat is more obvious, I suppose, when he plays at right back because he's always in one-on-ones, whereas someone like a Saliba, for example, there'll be different situations, and Van Dijk as well. But even years ago, I remember doing a piece for a fan blog that I used to write for, and I was checking up on Konsa's stats and etc. He was, I think, the last player to be dribbled past in the Premier League in 2020 to 21, I think, or maybe the next season after that, or maybe halfway through the season. But back then we knew that, okay, this guy is clearly an exceptional defender. And I always remember, and I know it was only Sheffield United and we lost the game, but people might remember themselves. we lost 1-0 at Bramall Lane in 2020-21, and the player kind of dribbles up to him, and it looks like he's going to take him on and maybe shoot in the far corner. And Konsa just does something like incredible where he turns around and just almost does like a skill move to tackle him. It was just bizarre. How have you done that? So yeah, from that point, and obviously before that and afterwards, yeah, we knew that we had a good player, and he's showing it now under Emery. The reason why he plays right back as well is because Villa like to play in a 3, as we said before. But Kamara, when he comes back, will he then drop into the 3 and Konsa would play as a centre back, and there's your back 3, and then you have a right back like Cash, you would kind of push on and play as a wing back like we have on the left. I don't know. But I'm absolutely fine with it. I just feel like, as I said previously, we can probably upgrade on Carlos, and if he leaves, I just think we'll be in a better position by the replacement that we bring in, whether that is a centre-back or, as I said previously, someone like a Simakan. I don't know. I'm not saying Villa are interested in, by the way, just the previous video that we did of options. Simakan, who played against Villa recently, plays for Leipzig, can do the right back and centre back like Konsa, different player, but the same thing. You can interchange whichever one you want then. That's something, like to see Villa do potentially. But yeah, Konsa at right back, absolutely fine with me.
Let's move on to the other end of the pitch, up front with a Matt, who says, I was quietly hoping Archer could prove something this year. His natural finishing ability is outstanding, but it hasn't quite worked for him in pre-season. His movement so far is so far off Duran, never mind Watkins. Is the homegrown category status the only thing that keeps him here for next season? Archer's a really strange one. We've covered it on a couple of different podcasts in different ways that for everyone... I always find this really weird, by the way, like how we kind of go back to old episodes, because I'm of the mindset like everyone watches everything. So they'll be like, why are you repeating yourself? But I know not everyone watches everything. So when we've spoken about Archer before, I've kind of been of the mindset that he wasn't needed last year. We sold him. I'm not sure whether we need him this year. And then I kind of flipped a little bit to think, well, he's playing in pre-season, he's featuring, he scored that goal against whoever it was. And it's like, okay, well, yeah, maybe there is a role for him here. But as time goes on, I'm more leaning towards the fact that I just don't think he's ready. I'm not sure he's good enough for where Villa are.
Yeah. Firstly,
if Watkins is out for 6 games, does Archer play those 6 games as the main man and score goals and Villa win games? I don't think he does.
No, and this is why the John Duran thing is so frustrating for me, because I know that John Duran is the perfect backup and the understudy in a football sense. But yeah, I've said before, Archer is a goal scorer, is a poacher, is an incredible finisher. But the link-up play, I haven't seen it because of Villa haven't played him very often. I didn't watch him very much when he played for Preston or Middlesbrough. I just saw him knock the ball in the net, which is great. But then the link-up play, is it there? What has Emery seen on that? I don't know. Not saying he can't do it, but I haven't seen it in pre-season games. He plays in a very different way to Duran, even Watkins, to be honest. Similar in the runs that he makes, but he just doesn't look very confident at the moment. He's not playing with that kind of same conviction as he did 12 months ago or even before that, like in the Australian pre-season tour that we had. He scored against Brisbane and someone else, Leeds, potentially. But yeah, I don't know, maybe lacking a bit of confidence from what happened at Sheffield United. I put a piece out saying it would make sense for Villa to keep him because we have 4 slots for the club trained players, and we don't have to fill them all out. Philogene and Ramsey will be 2. The other 2 will either not be either won't be players there, or it might be Archer. But yeah, Villa can't sign another striker and then bring in Felix as well. So Archer could have a kind of an advantage there, I suppose, because we still need a backup striker. So I almost feel like, well, if we sell Duran and bring in Felix or creative play supports Watkins, if Watkins then gets injured, would you rather have Archer to fill in or no Archer at all? It just feels like it would be sensible to keep him anyway. So I'm kind of skirting around the question of, is he actually ready to be the replacement? Where I'm just saying, actually, well, are we not better off just keeping him anyway? Because he's not taking up an extra place in the squad for the Champions League because he's a club trained player. So he's in a position where we have 2 of them in the reserve anyway. You either fill him or you don't. And then in the Premier League squad, is he going to be an impact player? I'm not too sure. But if Watkins does get injured, which is unlikely anyway, I'd rather have him playing than playing a creative player up there, like i.e. someone like Diaby wasn't a great fit last season, absolutely, but he would be the replacement for Watkins technically if we had no Duran.
using that example, Watkins is injured, touch wood, it never happens anyway, and this is all irrelevant. Cameron Archer has to play as the main number 9, and we've signed João Felix to play as that number 10 role next to Watkins, right? So it's Felix and Archer, or Felix plays the 10. Would you not rather like say Bailey plays as the striker with Felix and Philogene plays right wing than play Archer?
No.
Because that would not a better quality of forwards rather than Archer is the natural striker more so than Bailey.
I think you got to think of the balance of the team. I think it's kind of Cameron Archer's a striker and he does score goals. It's not the perfect replacement for Watkins, but Villa are in a position where what do they do? Like, we're not going to sign, or it's highly unlikely that we sign a striker and a creative player unless we offload somewhere else in the team and be lighter there. I can't see that happening. So for me, it would just make sense for Archie to stay around. And is that the best for his development? I don't know. Probably not, because he needs to probably go elsewhere and getting confidence. And maybe there's an opportunity for the Villa to then sell him for bigger money or whatever. If he stays in the squad and only plays here and there, not ideal, but at the same time, kind of needs must for Villa, because we do need a backup for a striker. What injuries can happen, and Watkins may get injured, and if he does, we'll be in a problem if we don't have another striker. Felix could play if he signs that role, but it's very different, because then what do you have then? McGinn would have to support him, I suppose, and the dynamic isn't quite there. So I would keep Archer. Rodgers could do it up front, but again, he's not a centre forward, or hasn't been for many years in his career. It's not the same. Archer is a striker, and he knows that role better than anyone else in that squad, apart from Watkins, if Duran goes. So I would probably just keep Archer, and for this season, he would know he's the understudy, and he'll play from time to time. But that's because Villa, as I said, that they need that, really. I just think it would be strange if they were to sell Archer now and Duran and only bring in one creative player. Yeah, of course, yeah. It is a strange dynamic, but yeah, if I was to guess, I would say Archer stays, Duran goes, creative player comes in, and that's your lot, basically, for your forward positions, which I'd be okay with. My only question would be, as I said previously, we don't have someone who's going to come on and bully players. Archer's a very different player to Duran. Yeah,
and what I said before about, is Archer good enough? Is he ready? Is my opinion as of now. Obviously, that could change if he is ready.
Valid. Absolutely valid.
And who's my opinion to go against, if Emery and Monchi and his team want to keep him and he does stay, they obviously see something in him that they can develop and work on and make him better. And maybe in 12 months' time, Cameron Archer scores 10 goals this season and they're important and he contributes towards us doing something. But as of right now, I've only seen bits throughout pre-season. I've already admitted to not staying up to watch them fully. It just doesn't look quite right to me. It doesn't look like he's a fit for what we want to do. And again, it's just pre-season, but I don't know.
Ourselves, we almost ruled Archer out, didn't we, Dan, when we did our little videos about the squad size, mainly because we just didn't think Diaby would leave, to be fair. And true. If Diaby stayed, he would be the support act to Watkins. And then if Duran goes, what am I talking about? And Archer would have gone. And if Duran goes as well, then you just bring in another striker. But because there's only one forward position that we can really add to, basically, and clearly they want a creative player because Diaby's gone for big money, that leaves Archer with, as I say, the advantage of actually, well, you're the one that's left, basically. And if we were to sell you, again, I keep mentioning, I'm trying not to, but we'd then have to take out another position to bring another striker in. So, yeah, Archer might have that look, I don't want to say luck on his side because he deserves to be where he is, but that look on his side to be actually, I need to be part of the squad. Because as I said, needs must, and Villa are lacking options here.
And what he has got is if this is how it plays out, he has been presented almost with an opportunity of, well, we sold you last year for whatever reason, you're now back, you are in the squad, you're in our Champions League squad, and he seems to have the right attitude and willingness to learn from someone like Emery to make himself better, to improve his first touch, to improve his link-up play, whatever it is. And hopefully that is of benefit to, firstly, Cameron Archer as the footballer, whether that's at Aston Villa or not, and for this season, to the benefit of Villa, that if Watkins does get injured or needs a rest or however it works, we can look at Cameron Archer as an option to come on and actually affect a game. Whereas at the moment, in August, I'm not quite convinced that is the case. Let's move on to Will, who says, I still can't get my head around the Iroegbunam sale. Everton fans are raving about him, saying he's been their best player in pre-season. We must have included buyback or sell-on clauses, right?
I don't know for certain, but I'd have thought there'd be something in there to sell a young player to a Premier League rival. Tim's a good player for sure. He didn't get the opportunity really under Emery. Similar to what you were saying there about Archer, I feel like Emery thought, well, actually, I'd rather keep Tim for the whole season than loan him out because he has a better chance of improving under me than at X club who might play in a different way. Like at QPR, for example, he played quite high for them, kind of box to box, but not in a role where he would come back to Villa and say, okay, I've done this role, and he would have been a holding midfielder as he was against like Ajax, for example, but he didn't do that too much at QPR. Anyway, a player that I think he needed to move on because it was clear that he wasn't going to be getting game time at Villa. We can't hoard young players either. So yeah, I'm okay with it. We couldn't have demanded any more than what we got for him. So it is what it is. Villa, I'm hoping, will become a club, or are a club even, where they are, because PSR exists, they have to sell academy players because they're incentivized to do so. But there'll be a point where we sell players like Chelsea have, and then fans will complain and say, don't say complain, it's not the right way, it's an opinion, it's absolutely fine. But they'll say, oh, well, we shouldn't have sold this player, we should have kept them. But they need to move to show that they're good, basically. Like Mark Gay was never going to, Mark Gay or Tomori even were never going to play at Chelsea, so they sold them, and now they've become good players, and Chelsea get criticised for not keeping them, but they wouldn't have become those players if they stayed at Chelsea. So there has to point. Do you say, So I'm okay with it, and there'll be more players down the line. And Tim hasn't even played a Premier League game for Everton yet, but I'm sure he'll be a good player for them, and in years to come he'll do well. But Villa have to sell the players, and what I would say is if Tim does well, that only adds a few more £1 million to Villa's academy players, because all of a sudden teams look at that and think, okay, so the ones that are coming out of Villa are ready. I'm happy. Again, years to come, hopefully that adds more value to our academy if our players who we sell, do well.
And maybe, going back to the last question, that is almost a little bit of the Cameron Archer situation, who's come back to Villa for a pittance, basically, and his value is probably at an all-time low, really, if they were to sell him this summer. If he does have a decent year next year, scoring goals, as an academy product, maybe his value goes up again. And that's the system that Villa have done, where he's worth 15 million again or whatever. And that's a benefit to them going forward on the books rather than on the pitch. Let's go with another outgoing then from Lance, who says, I understand what John said about the Luiz deal, although don't agree it was planned a year ago, but I don't think he is as replaceable as has been made out. I'm not talking about pre-season when I say this. None of our midfielders can do what he can. Were we scammed by Juventus?
Scammed is tough. It's PSR. Villa were never in a position to command 60 plus million for Luiz. They would have been if there was interested clubs, and we've said this before, that Villa had a price for Luiz, but there was a limited market for that player because, firstly, Premier League teams wouldn't really want to help Villa, would they, before the end of the PSR deadline? Because, unless there was give or take between the clubs, as we've seen, Juventus themselves can't shell out 60, 70 million pounds for a player. But what they can do is do a deal with Villa where it's worth a certain amount with players involved. So obviously, we were saying Barnechea and Illing Jr. join. The sum of the parts mean that Villa have got players for a sum, a kind of a cut price sum for the potential that those two players have. But Juventus aren't kind of shelling out a huge amount of money without getting anything in themselves. So that's PSR next season. I hope that Villa aren't in a similar situation now that it's sold Diaby as well. We don't know that for certain. We'll wait and see. But that's why we're seeing clubs kind of give and take with different deals to kind of essentially help each other out, because you have to be clever with the rules now. Because if you're being forced to make £70 million worth of player sales without kind of incentivizing a club to buy that player, you're not going to get anywhere, because they just won't help. They'll be like, no, we'll let you take the points deduction, then we'll buy your player. It's a horrible situation. Villa did plan for Luiz's sale because when Tielemans came in, that was the start of the planning as such. Villa are in a position there where we'll take Tielemans for nothing as a transfer fee, and it'll be depth if Luiz pens a new deal. He didn't, and he moved on. The 2-year left on the contract situation is something that Villa look at as as any other club would, as this is now your highest value. It's only going to depreciate from here. that would have been the same for Luiz. It's the same for Carlos, Dean, Mings, Buendia, Dendoncker, Moreno. As of now, because in 2 years they'll be out of contract. So that's an interesting situation. But were Villa scammed? No, they weren't. They were scammed by PSI, if anything, because they were forced into that situation. If anything, Juventus helped Villa out because otherwise, who would have bought Luiz? If it was Barcelona, for example, they would have probably offered 20 quid and then forced us to buy players that we didn't want. So yeah, it's not an ideal situation, but I think Villa have actually done the best that they could have in the transfer window, considering all of the challenges that they faced. They've also sold Luiz to a team who isn't a rival, Diaby to a team who isn't a rival.
I agree with the comment about none of our midfielders can do what he can. That is absolutely true as of right now. And Villa will be different next year. Villa will play in a different way, and that remains to be seen how that unfolds. It's something we will learn in the next 2, 3, 4 months. And Nana is a very different player. It allows Villa to play in a different way. And that, as you say, like the sum of the parts may not be as good as it was with a Luiz in the team. And it may take time to adapt and change. And we talk about a starting 11 that Luiz and Diaby out of it makes us weaker. Probably the starting 11 is affected possibly by a different centre-half coming in. João Felix coming in. And Onana and Maatsen are probably your starting left back and a midfielder eventually, or from the off, however it works, or whatever system you want to play. That side then I think is stronger, but just different to the way Luiz allowed us to play. It's not that one is right or one is wrong. It's just different, and I think we'll get used to a different Aston Villa as over the season pans out. On to incomings from Peter. If we fail to sign Felix, who are the alternatives that are attainable? Is Chiesa possible? Would Tony work? Oh, his 2 suggestions. Chiesa is still doing the rounds, isn't he? It's like a cut price deal. Nobody seems interested for various reasons, which is a bit of a red flag. Tony, again, similar actually. Somebody a player that looks destined to leave Brentford for about 5 years and is still there. I thought this would be the summer he eventually goes, and as of today, there's been no interest in him whatsoever. That's a red flag. So either of those 2 I wouldn't be personally interested in.
Firstly, on Tony, no, I don't think he would want to join anyway, because why would he want to be a backup to Watkins? And I wouldn't want him on his big wages at the age that he is. So no for me. Chiesa is a player that Villa have looked at previously and done groundwork on. Yeah, had an ACL, didn't quite hit the form that he previously managed to hit last season. So not totally sold on that. Definitely a good player, but there's a reason why Juventus is selling him and why other clubs haven't made a move, basically. So not too keen on that either, to be honest. But we'll see. I mean, I'm happy to see where Villa go with it, really. Felix, we know he's the priority target, and whoever else comes in, I don't think it's a guarantee that there'll be... I don't know quite how to say this, but Diaby was definitely showing signs that he was going to adapt. I don't think he was a perfect fit of what Emery wants, though. But that doesn't mean there's a guarantee that whoever comes in now will be that as well, if that makes sense, because Felix is the one. They have backups. But yeah, firstly, I don't know who exactly they will be and whether they'll fit, essentially. So I can't really comment on that otherwise, apart from Chiesa and Tony.
AVFC Dublin Lions gets in touch and says, how do we reintegrate Duran into the squad? Surely the saga has come to a head with the Hammers sign on Instagram. Can he have a future at our club? We spoke about this in a Duran special, didn't we, in the office last week, I think. And I said I think there was no way back for him as of when we were recording that. It felt like we kept saying like things move quickly. There could be another bid accepted in the next day or so, and basically nothing has happened since. That was last Monday, yeah. There was Saudi interest, that seems to have called. There was West Ham interest, that seems to have called a little bit as well. He also says, by the way, chewing gum for the ears is a compliment. It means easy to listen to, light-hearted, and not too heavy. I feel like this episode's been a little bit heavier than usual. A lot of speculation about next season and various different moving parts. But yeah, thank you for that. Duran, can he be reintegrated into this squad? Do you think is there a way back for him?
It's up to Duran.
Is it? Surely it's up to Emery, no?
Well, no, if Duran comes in and profusely apologises for his silly actions and says, I'm going to commit to Aston Villa and be the best player I possibly can, Emery will say, okay, good, because you're a fantastic footballer for your age and you've got everything that you need here. Let's move on. done in 2 minutes. Sound, take your slap on the wrist or whatever the disciplinary action that Villa may give him after reviewing the video. I don't know, man. Like, it's so silly, and he's silly for being immature. He's young, but that isn't really an excuse to throw up an iron sign in front of 1,000 people. But if he was to apologise and make it clear that he's going to switch his head on, then yeah, cool. But I don't believe that he would, or that he can, because he's had these actions before and he wants to leave the club. So is he going to turn up a body more and do everything I've just said? No, he's not going to do that because he wants to leave. So that's kind of a dream situation for me. But no, that's probably not going to happen. Villa will move him on if the right bid comes their way. So Saudi interest is still there. West Ham, I don't know exactly where that stands now because obviously they've just bought Fulkrug. Whether they'd still want to do a deal with Villa for Duran, I'm sure they probably would. How that would look, I don't know exactly. But would Duran want to go to West Ham now that Fulkrug's there? I think he'd probably back himself to be more competitive against him than Watkins. Fulkrug's a good player, but obviously he's, I think, 31 now. I think they're going to put him on a relatively big deal as well, which is very West Ham for an older player. But yeah, Duran may think that next season or even the season after it'd be starting potentially, whereas at Villa that won't be happening as long as Watkins stays. So it's not a move that I think Duran should be making anyway, and especially now, whether he goes Saudi or not, I don't know. Again, the reason why he wants to leave Villa is for game time. So how does he integrate back? I mean, I don't know. There'll be a plan. There'll be a meeting that he has, and he'll have to show that he's committed, etc. if he wants to kind of continue as he is. But we'll see. It's a difficult situation, not knowing everything about what they're talking about. There's not. We're only privy to a very small percentage of what this whole situation is. So,
do you think Villa would entertain a loan option with like a future purchase obligation? Maybe like if West Ham is a financial thing that they can't sort out, but they say we'll do a loan with 30 million next year. We can do that. Was that something Villa would entertain just to kind of conclude the saga?
I think that would be dependent on the structure of that payment. I think it would have to be on Villa's terms exactly to do a loan and then buy. I think they'd possibly be open to it because that could be something that solves PSR next year potentially. Or not solve it, sorry, but would definitely help. But again, it needs to be on Villa's terms. I don't know if that's something West Ham would want to do. And again, for Duran, really, like, why would you go there now? You've got the same battle on your hands. So, we'll see what happens. Again, this is going to move pretty quickly in the next few days. So let's wait and see.
Wayne says, if the answer is won't make the starting 11, what is the controversial question? Slightly different from Wayne. I like that. Giving us the answer rather than giving us a question. So the answer is won't make the starting 11. What is the question asked?
Well, okay. There's an elephant in the room because if we were to sign Felix and Kamara is injury free and you have a £50 million record signing in midfield, then that leaves competition for John McGinn. But I don't know. Right? It's difficult. McGinn is in my. I would just find a way for McGinn because, as I said before, I want to see an 11 without him. But I understand that is a situation that, there's a lot of competition. McGinn even said it himself as soon as he said he was on holiday and Villa are signing players, and you kind of say to yourself, get up and go for a jog, basically, because competition is stronger than ever. And his position won't be absolutely guaranteed when we have a fully fit team. But injuries exist in football, and I don't even know if we'll see that day next season. So, in my head, McGinn is still going to be playing definitely the vast majority of Aston Villa games, and he'll be starting. He started every game last season, I think, apart from when he was red carded. So, I don't know. I understand the question, but I don't want to kind of paint a narrative or create a narrative of like, oh, this is you have a squad for a reason, and this is what we need. So I'm happy that McGinn has got competition. It makes him play better. The only other one I'd say would probably be like Ross Barkley. I'm not too sure where that kind of fits because, again, if we have fully fit midfield, if you think of the two, I don't know, Onana and Kamara potentially as the starting two. Well, you've got Tielemans to come in there. You've got McGinn that can come in there. That's two players already. When we have a fully fit team, he's going to struggle to get in that 11. I'm pretty
that's just options though, isn't it?
He hasn't just got one option to get past. He's got 2 or 3, which is quite a lot. So he'll still play his part next season, Barkley, but because it's a long season. But fully fit team. If we're going on that, then it's going to be difficult.
Hayden says, when should we expect to see the away and third kits? West Ham is 2 weeks away, and I would assume they'll be announced by then. Yes, I would like to think we won't be playing in Claret and Blue at the London Stadium. So the friendlies don't really give too much away, but you would assume the away kit will be this week, I think, at some point. It feels quite likely. And the third kit tends to be like, oh, we're playing the Carabao Cup tomorrow. Oh, here's the third kit.
I genuinely have no idea. But I've always disliked that about Villa. I always say that when we release the home kit late, I don't care because it's before the start of the season. It's there for the friendlies. I don't like the staggered away than the third even later. Like I just don't like that. I'd rather them
the marketing though, isn't it? Rather than because if you go to the club shop and they're all there, you might think I love all these shirts, but I can't part with 80 quid for each one. Whereas if one comes out in August, late August and September, you've had a couple of paydays, you've had a chance to save a bit of money or whatever it is, where you then go, right, I'll have that in August, I'll have that one in September. Like you're more likely to actually buy them all if it's staggered, which is what the thinking would be.
I don't.
Tight kits like you and me just won't buy it regardless, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'll buy a sleeve patch and not the shirt.
But just to put on all your normal clothes every day, iron it on. Right, on to a couple of final questions then. I've called this the silly section because they're not really football related. First of all, from Daniel. There's been a lot of Daniels and Dans in this podcast today. He says, in press conferences, has John ever felt the urge to shout, Unai, we love you? John wouldn't be in his job much longer after an outburst like that, though, I guess. Have you ever professed your love for Unai Emery in a press conference?
Not verbally, no. Oh, wait, that sounds weird. Not out loud. But have I wanted to shout? Yeah, of course I have. Oh, mate, when we won on penalties against Lille, I just so much love for that man. Yeah, of course I do. But yeah, you gotta be professional and sit down and do your job.
What do you think the reaction in the room would be? Not just from Emery himself, but like the other journos, press people. What do you think, if you shouted that, what would happen?
There was a funny story, I suppose, when Villa played Olympiacos in the second leg, so out in Athens, Emery was doing his pre-match press conference. And I don't know if anyone remembers I don't know if they would because they weren't in the press conference, but Emery was asked, this is when Martinez was injured, I think. Or he was and he wasn't, but he was a doubt before the game, basically. Obviously, we were 4-2 down already. But in the press conference, someone asked him, what's the latest on Martinez? Has he travelled, basically? And Emery said, I don't want to tell you, basically. And everyone was like, oh, that's not good. And firstly, I want Martinez to be playing as a fan, of course. But secondly, I'd obviously got my piece written, had it all prepared, because we had like decent knowledge that he was going to be in the squad. So we kind of prepared for the... he's there basically. But when he said, I'm not going to tell you, my heart sunk a little bit of thinking, oh, you're joking. Like, I'm going to have to now write about something else and all of our preparations, whatever. It's gone out the window. So it was kind of a double blow of a fan, but also professional. And then later in the press conference, the last question, just before he was about to stand up, someone asked him again, like, can you just tell us if he's travelled? Like, is he there? And he was like, yes, okay, he's travelled. I just didn't want to tell you because... I didn't want to make the press conference about Martinez and about how we can't win without him, sort of thing, which I understand. Yeah. I gave because I shouldn't have done it really. I gave a bit of like a fist bump and I kind of cheered in the back of the room. But that was genuinely mainly because of the piece that I'd already written and the follow-up.
Yeah, you just didn't want to do the extra work.
Yeah, because I'd already done the work. I didn't want it to go to waste.
Yeah.
So I got a bit of stick from a couple of reporters that we were with. Like, obviously, only as a joke. Like, oh, John was cheering that, at the back. And I was like, well, actually, genuinely, because it was the work. It was nothing to do with me being a fan. Of course, it was a little. But I think that's the only time where my where my true colours have shown. Apart from when Villa score in a press box, so I do. If you sit next to me, you're in trouble. But it's all good. I stay professional.
Of course, yeah. Final 2 questions and the comment of the week are all about you, John. So this is for you to take centre stage and for me to give you a little bit of a ribbon. We'll start with Hilberto Solano, first of all, who simply says, has John booked his accommodation for Munich yet?
I don't, mate. If we get to the final, I don't need a room. I'll be either partying before and after that we've got there, or I'll be. I'm more than happy just to go there and just have a flight, whatever it takes, just to get there. Absolutely fine if we don't have a room. I will be there. We will be there, as Pep says.
We will be there. Finally, from the questions from another Dan who says, "How does John Townley feel about Christmas selection boxes? Does he sell them back to his mother?" Which is, again, as I said before, I don't know how many of these podcast people listen to it all the time, but that calls back to a reference of John disliking Easter eggs as a child, and when his mother bought them for him and his twin brother, he didn't want them, as his brother did, and his mom didn't want to leave them out, so John sold them back to his mother and pocketed the cash for whatever reasons.
Tidy profit? No, I didn't sell back the selection boxes. Is that the one where you get the little
It's like
flakes?
A cardboard box, and it has like a flake and a twirl or whatever, like different chocolate bars all in one big rectangle box.
No, I didn't sell those back to her.
You don't strike me as the chocolate type, so.
Well, I like chocolate, but no, I don't. Yeah, it's all right, but I don't really eat it that much.
Right, comment of the week, Mr. Cheesify. Can you ask John? This is from YouTube, by the way. If you leave a comment on this Q&A every week, I'll pick one to reference in the weeks after for those that don't listen all the time. Can you ask John what he has against barbers? He cuts his own hair so he doesn't have to visit one. And his first comment about having a cat's head is, "You would save money as you don't have to go to the barbers." Have you been wronged by a barber in the past?
That's a great question. It's funny, isn't it, what you say on here? You don't even realise that you've said, and then people now know like what you do in your life. I've got nothing against barbers. Barbers are fantastic, and cutting my own hair, I realise how difficult it is because I don't do it very well. No, honestly, it's just a save money, and I don't really care what people think I look like. So that's kind of the that's kind of the rationale behind it. If I'm not bothered about it, then why spend money on it? Basically, like obviously, I'd like a nicer haircut and a better haircut, but I'm not spending like like 20 quid these days for a trim. Like, come on.
Well, depends where you go. Yeah. Would you consider the shaven head rather than have to start think about doing it well, just like a buzz cut all over?
I don't think so, because I when I say I don't care how I look, I just don't think
you don't want to be bald.
Well, absolutely nothing wrong with that, and I think I probably will be at some point. But yeah, like, I'm happy with where I am at the moment with my hair. I feel like I'm in a job interview.
Where do you see your hair in 5 years' time, John?
Exactly that. I think if I went bald, that would also be a dramatic thing on the podcast. So that's also my fear. Do you think? Yeah. What do you think if I came on bald? Just a filter, lads.
Oh God, I don't know. I think it'd be quite funny.
That would be the same as me. Dye my hair pink or something. Like, not fussed either way if I'm bald or have pink hair, but it would be an issue walking into Villa Park and being on the podcast.
How about right? If I have to end up shaving my hair, when I have to end up shaving my hair, probably within this season, the day that I have to do mine, why don't you do yours at the same time? So when we come on the Q&A, we'll both have had shaven hair, and it'll be even more dramatic then. What a shock that'd be.
You don't need like moral support from me, do you? So,
well,
yeah, you don't know. And before you answer, no, I wouldn't. Before you ask it, sorry, I wouldn't want to do a podcast about that specifically either, because you would say, "Come to mine, I'll set up a tripod, and we can shave each other's hair."
I mean, yeah, that sounds like great content. If you want to see me and John shave each other's head, let us know in the comments down below. Right, I'm going to call it a day there, John. This has been a bumper edition of the Claret and Blue podcast Q&A. Loads of questions answered, loads of questions asked. Thank you for getting involved. I think we had 50 replies on the tweet. Obviously, we've not been able to get through them all, but we've managed a lot of them. Thank you, as always, for watching this episode or listening to this episode of the Claret and Blue podcast. John, thank you for joining me as always, and we'll see you again in a couple of days. Oh, mate, imagine the numbers on YouTube if we shaved our heads on our live stream.
It ain't happening.
Villa win the Champions League, we have to shave our heads.
Yeah, I would do that. For sure.
Oh, there we go. We'll have to, as weeks go by, we'll have to downgrade like what that is. Like if Villa win at the weekend, we have to shave our heads.